Back to the U.S., where tonight's debates are front and center, with millennials accounting for more than 20% of the U.S. population. Their generation will play a big part in determining the next president of the country as they come out in strong numbers. Joining me right now is a millennial roundtable. Katherine Timpf of the National Review, campaign manager at the Center for American Progress, Emily Tisch Sussman, and civil attorney Christy Kunzig. Ladies, good to have you on the program. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
What is your takeaway in terms of the debate tonight? Do you have a favorite?
I do. I have two favorites so far. I really like Donald Trump, and I also like Scott Walker.
Why? What's behind that?
I love Donald Trump because he's not your stereotypical politician. He's kind of abrasive, and he's all about making America great and jobs, and I think that's really important. And I like everything Scott Walker has already done, how he went after public unions, and even though he was opposed, he stood strong, and he went for what he said he was going to do. And I think most politicians say, I'm going to do all these great things, and then go and do something else.
I'd say you're right on the mark in terms of the perception for lots of generations, actually. Katherine, where are you on this?
I don't know who I like yet. Yeah. I do like Scott Walker. I like a lot of Rand Paul's policies, but he's not a very likable candidate. I'm very excited about whatever Donald Trump is going to say, especially in a debate situation. He might be asked about his record a little more, which I think the media is mostly treating him more of like a celebrity candidate and this kind of like a spectacle. They talk about it a little bit, but most people just talk about what's he going to say next.
Right.
And so I think a lot of millennials are going to be watching just because even if they don't know who any of the other candidates are, they know who Donald Trump is.
They sure do. Emily, what about you? Where do you stand? Do you have a favorite in the race?
Well, I think that what Trump brings to this is that, sort of celebrity factor, that appeal. I have heard tons of people talking about the fact that they're going to tune in just to see what he does, which is pretty incredible for, a 16-month out debate. But the challenge for the other candidates is they're going to have to figure out, do they engage with him? Do they get in with him, which gives him even more airtime and potentially bring them down into the mud with him? Or do they stay a little bit more statesman-like for the long haul, but that's going to be kind of less appealing and a little bit boring when you're this far out.
So Jolynn Kent, I mean, do you have a sort of a generalization for this generation? It's an important generation for the candidates, but as you mentioned a minute ago, it's wide. I mean, you're talking about folks in their 20s, right? So what's
20s
the ages?
And early 30s up to 35, I believe.
Up until 35. So that's a big range.
It's a big range, and also going back to the Trump thing, everyone within this range, even though it should be broken down into, smaller age groups. You have a very skeptical voting population here that sees through Trump. Even though you may like him, you also see all the reasons he's potentially not a great idea to be president, right? And so you have a very skeptical, very social media driven generation that can figure things out really quickly. And so I think that's actually where the pressure is on a lot of these candidates, because if you do as a candidate step to one side and actually take a stand on an issue, especially among 10 candidates on stage, millennials tend to be able to drive through and get to the core of the issue and say, actually, maybe I'll just move on. And there's less commitment, so to speak, in terms of a choice.
What are the most important issues to the millennials at the table? Let's talk about that for a second. I want to know from the three ladies here. Joe, you're also a millennial, by the way.
I'm not.
What's most? You're not. Are you sure?
He's taking his out of the running.
What's most important to you?
I think it would be between jobs and national security. Those are the two things that I really think I want to hear from all the candidates, and I know that Trump has already discussed those.
This is something that all the candidates, by the way, all generations agree that these are the two issues. Don't you think, Stephen?
I think real job growth and real wage growth. I mean, the numbers look good, but really, do people have the sort of jobs that they want? Are they making the amount of money that they want? I think that's going to be the key to keeping this economy going forward.
What do you think, Katherine? What's important to you?
Well, definitely those things. I think in general, though, millennials are kind of sick of politicians, which is why Donald Trump has gotten so popular. Nobody likes Hillary Clinton. They really don't.
Really?
Even my liberal friends are saying, I don't know what I'm going to do because I really don't like her. I don't trust her. I think a lot of millennials have had social issues. They're a little concerned about voting for conservative because social issues, but now because of gay marriage, and that's not going to be a huge discussion in this debate because it's legal or in this election.
Right, the Supreme Court sort of did the job for them.
So I think that things could really change because last time I remember it was this huge thing, and it's been this huge thing, but it's not going to be able to be.
But don't be mistaken, there are plenty of candidates that are still against gay marriage. So just because the Supreme Court says one thing doesn't mean these candidates are actually going to fall in lockstep with the Supreme Court here. But I think one of the biggest issues facing millennials going forward is student debt. There's no doubt about it.
Good point.
completely affects all of your economic decisions. If you're making a $300 to $1,000 a month payment, you will delay all your milestones. There's some new data out of Bankrate that says that 43% of even older adults have delayed their life milestones due to debt, education debt specifically. So that impacts when you buy a home. It impacts what kind of job that you're looking for, the quality of life. It impacts how you look at a presidential candidate.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Emily, final word from you. Do you have a most important issue that you are is different than what we're talking about here?
Well, it is absolutely going to be two things. It's going to be student debt as a structural issue, but it's also going to be jobs in a very specific way. Young people are not looking to job. No one's thinking about one career at one company. Everyone's cobbling together a bunch of jobs to try and make something and try and accumulate some assets. So candidates have to speak to that. They have to acknowledge that as the economy that we're living in. Otherwise, they're just going to get written off.
As we wrap up, it's interesting that you say people do not like Hillary Clinton, Catherine. Do you think there's a leaning with the millennial generation, conservative or liberal? Is that too general?
I think that most millennials aren't really comfortable with aligning themselves with a party. I think that they're independent.
Don't like labels.
They don't like labels. They don't like establishment type thinking because a lot of them have different views on different issues. I know I do, and I think most people do. So I think it would be very interesting.
Very smart. Ladies, thank you so much. Emily, Catherine,
Thank
Christine,
you.
make sure to tune in.